Okay, hopefully I won't mess this up. Let's see if we could get them. Can we get them? Yes, they're in the shot. Look at that. Oh, look at that. And more. Reading Zero Hedge, and that's what pops up. Little safe space for geese. Public Parks Department making a safe space for geese so that they could play baseball or groom the baseball field. They're looking at me like, what is he doing? Like, dude, he can't get through the fence. He doesn't have wings. Oh, I wonder if that tickles them every once in a while. That they're just kind of like, yeah, look, this one's facing me down. It's like, what's up, homie? What's up, homie? Don't mess with me. This is my grass. Around here. This here is my grass here. Can't have my grass here. I gotta admit, I'm reading some news on my day off, having my coffee. And I gotta admit, it's one of these things that the Biden administration seems to be intent on sinking the party. And so this is kind of the interesting, ooh, this lady needs a sports bra like crazy. So the thing that really hit me about it was that Thomas Wichter had brought up that he believed in the, wow, that was like distracting. She needed a sports bra so bad. It was like, dang. To the point where I could tell she realized, yeah, that was just funny. I could just see, I looked up for a moment, and we locked eyes, and it was just kind of like, yeah, they're all over the place, lady. Yeah, that's doing okay for your age. But anyway, Wichter had pointed out Judas goats in the Democratic Party. This idea of these people who are getting the party to do stuff that, in one way, like, people might think at first, this sounds like a great idea. That, like, to the most fervent members, this sounds like, yeah, like, that's a fucking great idea. What we do is to show that we hate their rules about having sex. We protest the Christians by taking one of their symbols and lighting it on fire. Yeah, I get it. That's a great idea. Wait, which symbol should we use, and should we light on fire in public? And then, like, later you're sitting there, and this is now happening on Twitter, is the whole idea of people being like, when did you guys think that this was going to be a good idea? Like, what was the meeting? What was this meeting like? That you guys were sitting there going, what a great fucking idea to do this. So now with the Biden medical mandates, this is now beautiful. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better, like, weapon to pummel the Democrats with. I mean, if there was anything that I'm like, how do you can't beat free. So the Great Society and the welfare state really is going to keep the black vote, a portion of the black vote, damn near forever. Because there will always be beggars. It's the way humans really are, and nothing beats free. So those things will just always come together someplace in the course of human events. So there will always be a welfare state, really. I just have to accept that. I mean, as long as there's a state to dish it out, of course, as long as there's other people's money to spend. So, but the whole thing about now is I'm just sitting back, like looking at, wow. So now you have this portion of society that it's like, okay, well, no, we're not taking this experimental medicine, and so this portion of society who is now represented by their sons becoming chicks, the white shit lives. Like, this is like the symbol of them is the belief that it is something called biological science that says there are men, women, and then other choices. And overall, the quote-unquote black ally, or maybe these are the ally people, and then there's the black people. But on the political left, there's been kind of this tense agreement that it's like, yeah, no black people are really buying that, and especially any that are particularly pro-black and concerned about black issues most of all, especially the men. They wouldn't care about that shit. That would be the first thing that they would probably have to say is for them that is mostly not really a concern. Then beyond that comes, and really, you know, there's genetics involved here, and this is kind of a non-issue, you know, and there's just not that many of those kind of people among black Americans, and they would really have to try to keep stressing it. What they're concerned about here are black people. This is something I had to think about in the case of Kevin Samuels. Why does Kevin Samuels have to be gay? Because then they could say he's not black. Because that is how it works. Black women will flock to the defense of a gay black man as long as he's defending the welfare state. If he's defending the welfare state, or if he's defending kind of the status culture around which at the time it's something that black women like, you know, like a person involved or a musician or something that is a part of status culture specifically. So this isn't like defending an author who say this author wrote a character that is particularly disturbing and how good the character is at being bad. Something like that. So that, you know, people are like, oh, but this character was very problematic. It was just so evil, and, you know, but oh, it was such a great work. You know, like something of that type of controversy. That's not what we're talking about. That's not the status culture. No, it's who's got a better ass kind of status culture. Like, you know, who should some celebrity have gotten with in comparison to some other celebrity. That tawdry level of status culture. Well, you could cancel Kevin Samuels if he is gay, because then he's no longer black and he's not included in status culture. Then that's how it works. That's how the black community has worked so far, as I've seen it over the years. Little Richard coming back into popularity. Nobody remembers that. He came back because he suddenly was saying that he was no longer gay. He was like 60. It was, I mean, he was old as dirt at the time. And it was just like, and he was obviously, it just made no sense. It made no sense. It was some way for him to kind of, I guess, sell, maybe get some royalties off of certain songs or collections, or tour again. And you know, because that's the thing, is that musicians have to go through this process of reinventing themselves. And people don't remember Little Richard during his funk years. And he wasn't bad at it in any way, shape, or form. No, and in fact, his strange androgynous act, his obviously there's bisexual connotations in a way going on. All of that was a part of his act, and but that the black community turned away from that. Remember, black people didn't play rap music on black radio stations. This is in the Ghetto Boys' first album. They're talking about that. It takes years for there to be categories for best rap album in music. MTV Raps was really truly kind of an underground thing that the teenagers were into back in the latest 80s, earliest 90s. It was like a real thing. That and what was it, Rap City? Before it was Rap City The Basement, I believe is what it became known as. It was just Rap City. And that was it. There was nothing else. And you would have a station like KPOO in San Francisco that would play rap music now and then. And sometimes a station like KPFA, I remember, might have a little something like a college station would have it. But those, even in the Bay Area, those were hard to pick up on unless you had a pretty high-end system because of the hills. The hills block the signals. They actually obstruct the signals. So, I've seen the black community embrace the odd sort of conservative liberal stuff of the 80s, and it was, you see, the thing that I really have to think about is this was an issue in my time that black Americans could not defend theology. This was a really important thing. I remember really thinking about this at one point because I roll this over in my mind so much. But a big part of this is they couldn't defend theology, and there was a certain aspect of understanding the culture as novel, a novel people, a new people, and sort of behaving as such as to pass that idea on, that it's, this idea of a novel republic, a novel people, rather than what really came out of, say, in the 90s in black militant, pro-black kind of stuff, that more of the stuff from Noble Drew Ali and that end, and the 5% Nation, and these ideas like that there was actually sort of a secret identity of black people, that we were actually some group of quite specifically this or that group in Africa, and this long conspiracy of how the white man stole us because of our connection to the African pyramids and going back to Solomon in some way or something, or when we built Sumeria, then we built Egypt, then we built Ireland or something, something really, the real good kooky stuff, with General Monk and shit like that in it. The real good kooky black kook ball kind of stuff that nobody wants to admit exists. Like, no one knows the 5% Nation exists. The only rap fans who pay attention to black stuff know that the 5% Nation exists. Nobody knows this exists. And I actually had someone look it up one day. And they were like, I finally looked up this thing you were talking about, the 5% Nation. And I'm like, really? And it was like, so what's your take on it? What do you think? And this was like somebody who was into occult stuff. She was like a new waver into occult stuff. And she found the 5% Nation kind of fascinating. And I kind of thought about it. I thought, yeah, I would figure you would find the 5% Nation fascinating. you're into occultism, that makes sense, and I don't think she really got the racial aspect of it. And I don't think she really got that. But so this type of so what you end up getting in the 80s and 90s, so you get these people who they kind of become exemplified in media as Will Smith's aunt and uncle, and who else? To some degree, oh no, don't mess it up. To some degree, Cliff Huxtable. You kind of get this in Cliff Huxtable. Now you see where remember, this is, because he has faced cancellation, he has reached his cancellation date, according to the media and status culture. We can no longer mention Cliff Huxtable as a character in black cinema in any way, shape, or form. But that's a very good character to exemplify a part of the culture that had embraced the conservatism that came with the 80s liberals. They're much more conservative, really, than people want to think. And there was then another side of it that exploded open with stuff like NWA. And that was my generation, our fascination with sort of this part of the culture that nobody would talk about, which was the N-words. I mean, NWA kind of exemplified it with their name itself, You weren't supposed to talk about people like that. And you weren't supposed to act like them. You weren't supposed to hang out with kids like that. People who have their hair like that, no, do not discuss a Jerry curl with me. Why? No, a man should not have braids in his hair, that kind of stuff, and people would say these things. Men shouldn't have long hair. Men shouldn't wear red shoes. That was one my mother said. But yeah. And so there was a division in the culture and it did last. I must say, the fact that Kevin Samuels exists and can talk about people who men he deals with in the black community, that he's talked about what they've done to become high value themselves, so that what he's discussing really are these men who are very typical, reach the middle class, are really the majority number of black American men that just enter the middle class and live normal lives, and that his mentioning of people like this is that culture survived, but it's mostly surviving embodied in these now just middle class, aging black men, who many of which, about half, are unmarried. And the N-word culture is blowing itself to smithereens all over the fucking country. And is now a key part of status culture. It's key to status culture. How much of an N-word are you? That's always been a part of it. There's never been a time where you have to have, as Richard Pryor put it in one of his gags, his cool walk. And then it's see the police coming, so I started having my cool run. And oh my God, Richard Pryor was so good. But the monkey's foot, that was what was it? The voodoo lady and the monkey's foot. I could find it. I should post it again to the art room in Discord. That gag, that bit is funny. I mean, that's an elephant feet. His giant feet. His friend has a curse put on him, and his feet swell up, and he has giant feet. That was the part of it that everybody really kind of kept giggling about, is he kept saying feats, and it just got funnier and funnier as he kept saying it. Saying he has giant feet. What's up with your giant feet? Right. So, at some point there's something that goes on, but it's basically I think it's called, if you were to look it up, Richard Pryor Giant Feats, I believe is what you have to look it up as, but I can't quite recall. It's funny. It's a good bit. It's a good bit. The rain. I have my long johns, got my long johns and my tracksuit. Look at that tracksuit. Bright red tracksuit. Oh yeah. Looking leisurely. Feeling leisurely with a cup of coffee. So, there was even a way out there, super outrageous, which it always has to be a super outrageous black man, a gay black man with some crazy name, and it was all just status culture, a status culture monster, party monster, status culture party monster, if anybody knows the reference, and he was all on Kevin Samuels being a sissy. He wears a Louis Vuitton fanny pack. He a sissy. And all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God. It was just so outrageous. And so, but the whole point is, you see, this was a gentleman from status culture. So, being that he is accepted by the motherhood of black American women because of status culture, but you see, they could cancel Kevin Samuels because Kevin Samuels is, he's not high up on status culture, and he's gay, so he's no longer really black. So do the women get to just cancel him outright? And of course, Kevin's like, how about fuck you and your little system of voting there? How about I just keep saying what I'm saying, make money, and get people married so there's more of my kind? Which I think is really the part that says a lot about what's going on really with this kind of faux, any kind of thing that has some kind of community and pride to it and stuff. If it's not meant to put the young people together, give them opportunities, and then have them make the babies, then there's no pride of any sort to it. It's false pride. Anything that doesn't produce, it's false pride. It's not celebrating any kind of culture, anything real. It's just phony. And that's why it's like, when I look at all this, the BLM, the police, they're just murdering the black people, and it's like, and then now it's become eminently clear. Just how these people are just phonies, that this was really something so that nonprofits could get money. And I really want to put it out there that this is one of those things, like the books falling off the shelf. As the vid, or as the Trump period was going on, actually, that's what it was. I know it was hurting nonprofits. I know there were various nonprofits that they were now worrying about their funding, and they were worrying about sort of having to get some kind of results, that they in some way, shape, or form are having to be sort of evaluated for higher results and some kind of proof of return of some sort. And this was really, I don't really like eavesdropping, but it's just that I picked up on this from conversations I was hearing around town. And, I just don't like, it's just, I just hear things, I'm like, I don't like that I listen to you, but that's very strange that this piece of information is making so much sense with all this other stuff that I know, and so, why is it that my life is like this? So the fundamentally, blue enclaves needed a big part of their industry, what their industry is, and that's nonprofit corporations. They needed them funded. This is what a huge portion, a big part of all of this bailout money is, to really try to keep, I think, blue enclaves afloat long enough that they could sort of pay back a bit of their debt. They could service a bit of their debt on their their various liabilities, and because they have all these liabilities to public workers for going back decades. So it was a theory that I was having, and also that I just have this belief that there's a lot of what's going to supposedly be public works money that will sort of get eaten up in the planning stages. That's one of my theories, but I really do believe a lot of this actually ends up just going back to something like helping nonprofits, these community groups, quote unquote, that a lot of it goes to things like that, and that to a great extent this is just a way of paying off the various forms of democratic shock troops that will try to come up with ways of performing voter chicanery or pull off one of their various ways, like hiding illegal immigrants, getting illegal immigrants hired at some place, hush hush under the table, working with the churches to hide the illegals, all that kind of business. That's what I'm thinking. A lot of this mega bill was, because also to a great extent, with it being the churches, this is also a Republican thing. That the evangelical churches probably make a good bit of money off this as well. They own a lot of property, and they've got to pay off that property somehow. And so that's probably, I figure that if I were them, that's how I'd do it. And especially looking at who voted for what, it does look like no, the evangelicals are obviously in on the illegals game. It's just how are they spreading it out so that they could have the least amount of risk versus reward. Like what part of a religious organization is hiding the illegals, that kind of thing. And so so there we go. There's some things I was crunching over the last week or so, and also this was something that if anybody ends up stumbling on some information about Pico satellites, those small array satellites that now are the big thing, and you hear any good stories about that, could you drop those stories in the science and technology section of the Discord? Because I've been really, I just got this feeling, I haven't heard much about it lately, and I just got this feeling that something is kind of, it's just one of those things where it's like the book falling off the shelf for me, and I'm like, I wonder what's going on with micro satellites or Pico satellites. And some of you guys have just such great sources that I'm like, holy crap, yes, this was gold. This is exactly what I needed, and so, so I'll talk to you guys soon.